The year is 2002 and Zimbabwe is restless. Mugabe, a once celebrated liberator, now is an autocratic president. Election after election follows the same script. And people are growing tired of broken promises, tired of living in fear, and tired of waiting for change. And one man says what millions are thinking. You are old and worn out. In Shona, that simply translates to wasakara. The words came from Zimbabwe's most beloved musician, Oliver Mtukudzi. The song is not a speech, it is not a rally cry, it is music. But like any other country looking for change, music is not just for enjoyment. It can be political, and he pays the price for it very swiftly. Oliver Mtukudzi is denied an honorary degree by the University of Zimbabwe. The reason? Wasakara is deemed anti-President Robert Mugabe. To understand why a song would threaten a presidency, we must go back to the beginning. Robert Gabriel Mugabe was born on February 21st, 1924 in Kutama, southern Rhodesia, now modern-day Zimbabwe. He was the son of a village carpenter and educated in mission schools. Mugabe was introduced to nationalist politics while studying at the University College of Fort Hare in South Africa. Between 1956 and 1960, Mugabe worked as a teacher in Ghana, which exposed him to Pan-African ideas and independent movements across the African continent. When Mugabe returned to Rhodesia in 1960, nationalist politics were intensifying.
As an individual, and that everybody must be accorded his full political rights, whether he be white or black, educated or uneducated, rich or poor.
In 1963, alongside Reverend Ndabaningi Sithole, he helped form the Zimbabwe African National Union, or ZANU, a breakaway movement from Joshua Nkomo's Zimbabwe African People's Union, also known as ZAPU. In 1964, Mugabe was arrested for subversive speech. Subversive speech is a language that challenges authority, questions power structure, and exposes injustice. This was considered dangerous under colonial rule. He would spend 10 years of his life in prison for that.
No, we cannot reach an accommodation with the Rhodesian government because the Rhodesian government is determined on minority rule. Until they change that position, I cannot see how we can reach an accommodation.
While incarcerated, Mugabe studied relentlessly, earning law degrees through correspondence courses. In 1974, while still in prison, he organized a political coup with ZANU, removing Sithole and making himself the party's leader. By late 1974, Mugabe would be released from prison. Between 1975 and 1979, Rhodesia was caught in a fierce civil war, with a black majority battling the white minority government of Prime Minister Ian Smith.
I don't believe in black majority rule ever in Rhodesia.
Mugabe became a joint leader of the Patriotic Front with Joshua Nkomo. Guerrilla fighters launched their operations from nearby countries, including Zambia, Mozambique, and Angola. And in 1979, negotiations in London finally ended the war. But the elections would be British supervised and they would only follow in 1980. And Zimbabwe was finally free.
In Rhodesia, the triumph of Mr. Mugabe. It's all right for the Africans, but what about the whites? Mr. Mugabe's landslide victory here, with a total of 57 of the 100 seats, has left Rhodesia's white population fearful tonight. But Mr. Mugabe, in an exclusive interview with Newsnight, says he wants them to stay and he wants to join the Commonwealth. The people who voted Mr. Mugabe into power were mainly the Shona people of eastern Rhodesia. In the eastern provinces, Mr. Mugabe won 56 seats to Mr. Nkomo's 5. In the western provinces of Matabeleland, that's the stronghold of Mr. Joshua Nkomo, he took 15 seats to Mr. Mugabe's 1. And the political divide at the moment looks very like a divide between tribes. Now, Mr. Nkomo, is this a country in two parts?
No, I don't think so. I don't think you're correct when you say the divide into tribes. Because if you talk of Shona and Ndebele, these are not tribes. These are a collection of tribes.
They speak different languages, don't they?
They speak different languages. There may be a variation of languages, but it is not correct to say Shona and Ndebele are two tribes.
Oliver Mtukudzi was chosen to sing the new independent country's national anthem, Ishe Komberera Africa, or God Bless Africa, at the time because he resonated deeply with people within his music, the liberation and the struggles of the common Zimbabwean. At this time, Mtukudzi was transitioning from his early group, the Black Spirits, into a solo career. Mtukudzi sang in Shona, Ndebele and English, bringing together different ethnic and cultural groups. His music focused on hardships, resilience and hope. Through metaphor, his lyrics reflected the daily experience of Black Zimbabweans while avoiding direct challenges to those in power.
I'm very happy about the victory of Mr. Mugabe, and I'm expecting big changes, such as people in the squatters will be removed to good houses. In the jobs, we'll be having equal jobs, equal money, and everything like that. There will be no racial discrimination between people.
As Prime Minister, Robert Mugabe started off carefully, making sure white farmers and business owners felt safe because their skills were quite important for the country's economy. He created a coalition government between ZANU, mainly supported by the Shona majority, and ZAPU, which drew support from the Ndebele minority. This new coalition ensured parliamentary seats for white citizens, and Mugabe spoke openly about reconciliation. At the same time, his government raised wages, expanded social services, and introduced food subsidies to improve the lives of Black Zimbabweans. However, beneath the surface, Mugabe's long-term intentions were already quite evident. He intended to transform Zimbabwe from a parliamentary democracy into a one-party socialist state.
So they can say anything in their papers, damage me in every way possible, as long as the people I lead are behind me and approve of what we are doing. That's what matters.
Just 2 years after independence, Mugabe removed Joshua Nkomo from the coalition cabinet. Ethnic tensions between the Shona and the Ndebele intensified. A strong central committee and executive committee were set up, creating structure meant to control not just one party, but the entire nation. By 1984, ZANU-PF held a party congress that cemented Mugabe as its unchallenged leader.
In regard to the ZANU-ZAPU relationship, I'm sorry to say we've been deadlocked for far too long on the question of unity. And the Central Committee of my party has recently decided that the talks be discontinued, for they are serving no useful purpose.
And Mugabe retained absolute control. On December 31st, 1987, Robert Mugabe became Zimbabwe's first executive president.
I have suffered. I have worked so hard for this country. Before independence, during the war, I worked so hard after independence to make our independence stick. And this man today turns around and he calls me a traitor. Me, a traitor, a man who worked for this country so much. There is no insult to be this one.
The one-party rule now became a reality. In 1990, Mugabe was re-elected in a multi-party election. This showed evidence of intimidation and violence, and at this point, he's 66 years old. By the late 1990s, Zimbabwe was falling apart. A failing economy, combined with Mugabe's decision to send troops to support Laurent Kabila in the Democratic Republic of Congo, sparked widespread unrest. At the same time, Mugabe announced pay increases for himself and his cabinet. In November 1998, riots erupted across the country. In September 1999, the first serious political opposition emerged, the Movement for Democratic Change, led by trade unionist Morgan Tsvangirai. In the 2000 parliamentary elections, the MDC won about half of the contested seats. Still, ZANU-PF retained control through unelected and secured positions. Mugabe remained in power. In 2002, and at the age of 78, Robert Mugabe was re-elected once again. And this is when Oliver Mtukudzi spoke. Alongside the people, he released Oasakara, You Are Old. The song expressed the nation's frustration in ways that speeches could not. Many activists, artists, and ordinary citizens tried to resist the regime in their own ways. Many were tortured, and some were beaten to death by the alleged ZANU-PF members and war veterans. Later in 2002, a new law allowed Mugabe to confiscate white-owned farms, and approximately 4,000 farmers were removed.
We came here to occupy this place.
You occupy this place?
Yes, from now onwards, this is ours.
Which this whole farm?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
However, much of the seized land ended up in the hands of politically connected individuals with little farming experience. Western countries, led by Britain and the United States, responded with sanctions, citing land seizures, human rights abuses, and rigged elections. The sanctions isolated Zimbabwe in all aspects. Now, in isolation, the agricultural production in Zimbabwe collapsed. Combined with drought, food shortages became severe. In response, Mugabe launched an indigenation program banning foreign ownership of majority stakes in companies, but the conditions worsened. Media freedom disappeared, opposition figures were beaten and harassed. A controversial housing demolition program left hundreds if not thousands homeless. By 2007, Zimbabwe had the highest inflation rate in the world and one of the highest unemployment rates. Yet, Mugabe remained firmly in control. In December 2007, ZANU-PF endorsed him again as its presidential candidate. Between 2008 and 2009, hyperinflation reached an unimaginable 231 million%. Basic services collapsed. In 2009, the Zimbabwean dollar was abandoned in favor of foreign currencies, such as the South African rand and the US dollar. In response to the crisis, Mugabe and the opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai signed a memorandum of understanding in Harare, opening talks to address the nation's turmoil. Former South African President Thabo Mbeki was acting on behalf of the Southern African Development Committee, or the SADC, facilitating the negotiations. In November 2017, after nearly 37 years in power, Robert Mugabe was removed in a military assist transition, following his dismissal of Vice President Emmerson Mnangagwa. In February 2018, Morgan Tsvangirai unfortunately died in Johannesburg at the age of 65 from colon cancer. On January 23, 2019, legendary musician Oliver Mtukudzi also passed away in his home in Harare. And later that year, on September 23, 2019, Former President of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, died in Singapore at the age of 95. Was former President Robert Mugabe a villain or a hero? Or could he possibly have been both?